You probably think you know dinosaurs. After all, they've been in movies, books, and documentaries for decades. But here's the thing, almost everything you think you know about these prehistoric giants is wrong. And I'm not just talking about small details. I mean fundamental facts that completely change how we see these creatures. Take the most famous dinosaur myth of all. The T-Rex had useless arms. Those tiny arms could actually lift 400 pounds. That's right, enough to bench press 3 adult humans. But if you think that's mind-blowing, wait until you hear about the myth that fooled even scientists for over 100 years. These are 15 dinosaur myths that you still believe that are absolutely false. If you love dinosaurs and want to learn more about them, make sure to like this video and subscribe. When you picture a dinosaur, you're probably imagining something the size of a house. But what if I told you that some dinosaurs were smaller than your pet cat? In fact, one of the most successful dinosaur species was no bigger than a chicken. And that's just where it starts to get really interesting. Here's a fun experiment. Ask any kid to draw a dinosaur, and chances are they'll sketch something massive. And who can blame them? We've all grown up with images of towering Brachiosaurus and building-sized T-Rexes. But here's the thing, focusing only on the giants is like saying all modern mammals are elephant-sized. The truth is, dinosaurs came in an incredible range of sizes. While Argentinosaurus could reach lengths of 130 feet, that's longer than 3 school buses by the way, some of the most successful dinosaurs were downright tiny. Take the Compsognathus, for example. This little predator was only about the size of a turkey, but it dominated its ecosystem for millions of years. That's longer than humans have even existed, by the way. This thing lived longer than us. That's pretty impressive. These smaller dinosaurs weren't evolutionary dead ends or failed experiments from nature. They were incredibly successful, often outlasting their larger cousins. Think about it. When food became scarce or environments changed, which would have better survival odds? Something that needed hundreds of pounds of food per day, or something that could get by on just a few insects? In fact, some scientists now believe that these smaller dinosaurs were actually the norm, not the exception. The giants that we're so familiar with might have been the unusual ones. Kind of like how elephants and giraffes are amazing, but definitely are not your typical mammals like your cow or your horse. But if you think dinosaur size will blow your mind, wait until you see how they actually move, because that tail-dragging lumbering lizard that you're picturing in your head, I'm about to shatter that entire reality. Every classic dinosaur movie shows the same thing. Giant reptiles dragging their tails through the dirt like living bulldozers. But here's the wild part. We've never found a single fossil trackway showing tail marks, and the reason why changes everything we thought we knew about how dinosaurs move. You know the image of Brontosaurus plodding along, tail scraping the ground behind it? Turns out that's about as accurate as showing elephants crawling on their bellies. But don't feel bad. Even scientists got this one wrong for nearly a century. The breakthrough came when paleontologists started looking at dinosaur tails differently. They weren't just dead weight, they were precision engineered balance beams. Take the velociraptor's tail. It was basically a carbon fiber rod made of specialized tendons and bones, held perfectly horizontal and stiff as a board. Why? Because it acted like a counterweight, letting them make sharp turns at high speeds without wiping out. But here's where things get even more interesting. Those giant sauropods, like the Diplodocus, their tails were basically biological bullwhips. The vertebrae in them got progressively smaller towards the tip, creating a natural whip structure that could actually break the sound barrier when snapped. Imagine being a predator and hearing a sonic boom from your intended prey. And the T-Rex, its tail was essentially a massive stabilizer, like a rudder on a ship, helping it pivot and turn despite its massive head. Without that perfectly balanced tail, it would have face planted every time it tried to chase something. The evidence is literally set in stone. Fossil trackways from all over the world show footprints with no tail marks between them. These weren't clumsy lizards. They were more like Olympic gymnasts, using their tails for perfect balance and explosive movement. Speaking of movement, forget everything you thought you knew about dinosaur speed, because that scene in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex catches up to the Jeep, turns out that wasn't Hollywood exaggeration, because some dinosaurs were even faster. Yeah, Hollywood actually had to slow the dinosaur down, because the real speed of these prehistoric predators would have made that chase scene end, well, let's just say much quicker. When we think fast, we think cheetahs hitting 70 miles per hour. Now imagine something the size of a bus moving nearly that quickly. Carnotaurus, with its ridiculously tiny arms and massive legs, could sprint at speeds up to 35 miles per hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt, and this thing weighed as much as a rhino. But speed was just part of the story. These these weren't just fast in a straight line, they were agile too. Take Velociraptor. Thanks to its specialized tail and lightweight build, it could turn on a dime at full sprint. We're talking about a predator that could change direction faster than a professional soccer player. Even the big guys weren't the lumbering giants we once thought. New studies of T-Rex leg muscles show they were built more like turbocharged power lifters than slow reptiles. Their leg muscles could generate enough force to crush a car. And that's not an exaggeration, that's actual calculated force. Here's the really mind-blowing part though. Some smaller dinosaurs like the compy we talked about earlier could hit speeds of up to 40 miles per hour. That's nearly highway speed, and they had a maneuverability to match. Imagine a turkey-sized predator that could outrun a motorcycle through a forest. But the best evidence? Fossilized trackways showing dinosaurs in full sprint. We can actually calculate their speed from the spacing of their footprints. And let me tell you, these weren't just casual strolls. They were full-on Olympic sprints that would leave modern animals in the dust. But if you think their speed is impressive, wait until you hear about when they actually lived. Because the classic image of cavemen fighting dinosaurs, the real timeline is going to make your head spin. If you've ever seen a movie showing cavemen battling the T-Rex, I've got some bad news. Those humans missed the dinosaurs by about 65 million years. That's not just a small gap, by the way. It's such a large time gap that the human can barely process what that actually means. But to break it down, we gotta put this in perspective. You know the pyramids in Egypt? They're about 4,500 years old. Ancient, right? Well, if the entire history of Earth was a 24-hour clock, humans would show up at 11:58 p.m. The dinosaurs, they ruled from about 2 p.m. to 11:40 p.m. We literally missed them by 18 minutes on this cosmic clock. And here's the really wild part. When you find a T-Rex fossil, actually closer in time to that T-Rex than the T-Rex was to Stegosaurus. Let that sink in. There's about 83 million years between Stegosaurus and T-Rex, but only 66 million years between T-Rex and us. But don't feel too bad about missing the dinosaurs, because technically you're looking at one right now. That chicken sandwich you had for lunch, congratulations, you ate a modified dinosaur. Birds aren't just related to dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. They're the only surviving members of the theropod family, the same group that gave us T-Rex and the Velociraptor. The evidence is literally in their bones, from hollow skeletons to wishbones, from scaly feet to laying eggs. Birds aren't just distant cousins of dinosaurs, they're their direct descendants. That pigeon outside your window, it's actually got more in common with T-Rex than T-Rex had with the Brontosaurus. But speaking of things we're all getting wrong, let's talk about what actually killed the dinosaurs, because that asteroid you've heard about, it wasn't working alone, and the real story is way more explosive. Everyone knows about the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, but here's what they don't tell you. Earth was already trying to kill them with the largest volcanic eruptions in history. The asteroid, that was just the knockout punch in what might be the worst 1-2 combo in Earth's history. Picture this, you're a dinosaur living your best life 66 million years ago. Things are already getting rough because volcanoes in modern day India are erupting on a scale that makes Mount St. Helens look like a science fair project. We're talking about lava flows that could cover the entire United States in 600 feet of rock. Not exactly a great time to be alive, honestly. These weren't your typical volcanoes either. The Deccan traps were pumping out enough carbon dioxide and sulfur to turn Earth's atmosphere into something that would make Venus jealous. Temperatures were swinging wildly, acid rain was falling, and the air was getting harder to breathe. And then, just when things couldn't get worse, 5 big booms later, an asteroid the size of Mount Everest slams into Earth at 45,000 miles per hour. The impact was so powerful it sent chunks of Earth flying into space. Some scientists think it hit with the force of 10 billion Hiroshima bombs all at once. But here's the really crazy part. Some dinosaurs actually survived both of these extinction level events. Not the big famous ones, mind you, but the small feathered dinosaurs that could fly and adapt quickly, they made it through. We call them birds today, and they're living proof that life finds a way. Because speaking of survivors, let's talk about everyone's favorite gentle giant, the Brontosaurus. Because not only did it survive extinction once, it actually came back from scientific extinction too, and the story of it is absolutely wild. If you're older, you might remember when scientists told us when Brontosaurus wasn't a real dinosaur. Well, plot twist, they were wrong about being wrong. In what might be paleontology's greatest comeback story, this iconic dinosaur fought its way back from scientific extinction. And this story is better than any Hollywood script. The whole mess started with what historians call the Bone Wars. Basically, the most dramatic scientific feud of all time. Two paleontologists, Marsh and Cope, were so desperate to outdo each other, they resorted to fossil theft, spy networks, and even dynamiting dig sites to keep their rivals from getting specimens. I'm not making this up. This actually happened. During this fossil frenzy, Marsh discovered two massive long-necked dinosaurs. He named the one Apatosaurus and the other Brontosaurus. But in 1903, scientists decided that they were actually the same dinosaur. And since Apatosaurus was named first, Brontosaurus got erased from the history books. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast, because in 2015, scientists decided to settle this debate once and for all. They looked at over 477 physical features across 81 different dinosaur specimens. That's like doing a DNA test on an entire family tree. Turns out Brontosaurus was different enough to deserve its own name. After all, the differences might seem small to us. Slightly different neck vertebrae, unique hip structure, but in dinosaur terms, these were major distinctions. It's like telling the difference between a lion and a tiger. Sure, they look similar, but they're definitely not the same animal. After more than a century of scientific exile, Brontosaurus is back on the books. Not bad for a dinosaur that supposedly never existed. But speaking of things we got wrong about dinosaurs, let's talk about their blood. Because that whole cold-blooded reptile thing, well, new evidence suggests dinosaurs had more in common with birds than lizards, and it completely changes how we see them. Imagine being told that everything you know about dinosaur biology is wrong. Well, that's exactly what happened when scientists examined dinosaur bones under a microscope, because these cold-blooded reptiles had something in their bones that only shows up in one type of modern animal: warm-blooded birds. For years, we pictured dinosaurs as oversized lizards, basking in the sun to warm up like modern reptiles. It makes sense, right? Big, scaly, reptilian-looking creatures must be cold-blooded, but here's where science throws us a curveball. Dinosaur bones tell a completely different story. See these tiny channels running through the bone? They're called haversian canals, and they're like tiny blood vessel highways. Modern cold-blooded animals have very few of these, but dinosaur bones, they're packed with them, just like modern birds and mammals. This isn't just a cool fact, it's a smoking gun. Think about what this means. A warm-blooded T-Rex wouldn't need to wait for the sun to heat up before hunting. It could chase prey at night, in the rain, even in cooler temperatures. Suddenly, these predators become even more terrifying. They were basically running their own internal furnaces 24/7. But it gets better. Some dinosaurs might have even been warmer than modern mammals. Scientists found evidence that some sauropods ran hotter than a bird's body temperature. We're talking about walking furnaces that could heat up a room just by standing in it. And those feathers we keep finding on dinosaur fossils, they weren't just for show, they were insulation, helping these warm-blooded creatures maintain their supercharged metabolism. Think of it just like your winter coat, but it's way more prehistoric. But if you think warm blood was dinosaurs' only surprising feature, wait until you hear about their skin, because those scaly monsters that you're picturing, many of them were actually covered in something that would make them look like giant chickens. If Jurassic Park was scientifically accurate, those velociraptors would have looked like murderous turkeys than giant lizards. And T-Rex, picture the most terrifying chicken you've ever seen, but the size of a bus. Welcome to the fluffy side of dinosaurs. The revolution started in China. 1996, paleontologists discovered a dinosaur fossil so perfectly preserved you could see every detail of its body covering. But instead of scales, they found something shocking: feathers. Not just a few, but a full coat of them. This wasn't some weird one-off either. Since then, we found over 50 different species of feathered dinosaurs. And these weren't just bird-like feathers either. Some dinosaurs had primitive proto-feathers that looked more like fuzz or hair. Others had full-on quills. The Velociraptor, it had arm feathers so well developed they looked like wings. But here's where it gets really interesting. We found evidence of feathers on some pretty unexpected dinosaurs. Even some T-Rex relatives might have had feathery covering when they were young. Imagine a baby T-Rex covered in fuzzy down, like some nightmare version of a baby chick. The colors weren't what you would expect either. Thanks to new technology, we can actually determine dinosaur colors from fossil feathers. Some were iridescent, like hummingbirds. Others had complex patterns and stripes. These weren't dull, gray lizards. They were as colorful as modern birds. But if you think feathers make dinosaurs less intimidating, wait until you hear about their intelligence, because those tiny-brained lizards were actually smarter than you might think, and some could give modern animals a run for their money. Remember that scene in Jurassic Park where the raptors figure out how to open doors? Turns out that might not be as far-fetched as we thought, because new research shows that some dinosaurs were smarter than dolphins, and one species in particular might have been as intelligent as modern primates. Meet the Troodon, a dinosaur with a brain-to-body ratio that would make some modern mammals jealous. When scientists first calculated its intelligence quotient, they had to double-check their math. This turkey-sized predator packed more processing power than any other dinosaur we've found, and it's changed everything we thought we knew about prehistoric intelligence. We found evidence of complex social behavior that would put some modern animals to shame. Maiasaura, whose name literally means good mother lizard, built massive nesting colonies and cared for the young for months after hatching. They even had dinosaur daycare centers. Seriously, seriously, we found fossil evidence of adult dinosaurs watching over groups of juveniles while others went foraging. And those dumb plant eaters, turns out they were running some pretty sophisticated operations. Hadrosaurs had complex social hierarchies and used their hollow crests as natural trumpets to communicate across miles. Think about that. Dinosaurs had their own built-in social media network. The real mind blower comes from pack hunting dinosaurs though. We found evidence of coordinated hunting strategies that rival modern wolves. Multiple sets of trackways showing raptors working together to take down larger prey using tactics that require planning and communication. These weren't mindless killing machines. They were prehistoric special forces. Wait until you hear about their swimming abilities, because that whole dinosaurs couldn't swim argument, we've just found something that completely changes the game. Imagine a 50-foot predator that hunted like a crocodile but could chase you on land like a T-Rex. Meet the Spinosaurus, the first confirmed swimming dinosaur, and the story of how we discovered its aquatic lifestyle reads like a Hollywood thriller. The story starts with a German paleontologist in Egypt, 1912. He discovered the first Spinosaurus bones, shipped them to a museum in Munich, and then World War II happened. Allied bombing destroyed the specimens, and for decades, Spinosaurus remained a mystery. That's just the beginning. Fast forward to 2014, when scientists found something bizarre in the Moroccan desert: Spinosaurus bones with dense walls, like those in modern penguin bones. Why would a dinosaur need heavy bones? Simple: to stay underwater. This wasn't just some dinosaur that occasionally splashed around. This was a genuine swimming machine. But here's where it gets wild. Spinosaurus had a massive sail on its back, paddle-like feet, and a crocodile-like snout packed with pressure-sensitive organs. Imagine combining a crocodile, penguin, and a sailboat, then making it bigger than a T-Rex. This thing was built for hunting in rivers and could probably outswim an Olympic athlete. But Spinosaurus wasn't alone. We found evidence of other dinosaurs that were comfortable in water. Some hadrosaurs had webbed feet and tails perfect for paddling. Even T-Rex might have been a decent swimmer. Computer models show it could have used its massive tail like a crocodile's to power through the water. If you think swimming dinosaurs are impressive, you need to hear about bringing them back to life. Because while Jurassic Park got the cloning part wrong, scientists are working on something even more mind-blowing. But sorry, Jurassic Park fans, the mosquito and amber trick won't work. Scientists are actually trying something way cooler. They're not cloning dinosaurs. They're reverse engineering them from modern birds. And they've already made a chicken with a dinosaur face. That's just a joke, but let's start with why the amber method is impossible. So actually, I did more research on this topic. This isn't a joke. They accidentally were able to do this. Here's the picture of it. That is crazy. DNA has a half-life of about 521 years, meaning after just a few million years, it's completely unusable. The youngest dinosaur fossils are 66 million years old. Do the math and you'll see why finding intact dino DNA is about as likely as finding a unicorn riding a dragon. But scientists aren't giving up. Instead, they're getting creative. Birds are living dinosaurs, and their DNA still contains ancient genetic code that's usually turned off. By activating these dormant genes, researchers have already created chickens with dinosaur-like snouts instead of beaks. Here's where it gets really wild though. Scientists have identified the genes that gave T-Rex its famous arms, Stegosaurus its plates, and Triceratops its horns. They're all still there, hidden in bird DNA like a prehistoric blueprint. It's like having the source code for dinosaurs right in front of us. But before you start planning your dinosaur theme park, there's the catch. We can't just flip a switch and turn a chicken into a T-Rex. That would be ridiculous. The process is incredibly complex, and we're still years away from creating anything that looks like a proper dinosaur. Plus, there's the whole ethical debate about whether we should even try. I think we should because it would be kind of cool and funny, but I can see why you wouldn't want dinosaurs alive again. Speaking of the T-Rex though, let's talk about those famous tiny arms, because new research shows they weren't just useless appendages. They were actually powerful enough to bench press a car, and the reason why will completely change how you see this legendary predator. Everyone loves to laugh at the T-Rex's apparently puny arms, but here's the thing, they weren't puny at all. Each arm was about 3 feet long and packed with enough muscle to put a bodybuilder to shame. We're talking about biceps bigger than your torso, connected to bones thicker than a professional wrestler's leg. But why would evolution give T-Rex such powerful arms while making them so short? Turns out it's all about specialization. Just like humans in their careers and mine for eating too much Kraft dinner, think of them like nature's version of brass knuckles. They weren't for reaching, they were for close combat damage. When you've got a bite force that can crush a car, you don't need long arms. You need strong ones. Here's where it gets really interesting though. Those arms had another trick up their sleeve. They could rotate almost 360 degrees, like a socket wrench. Combined with their massive strength, that means T-Rex could grab prey and twist with enough force to rip off chunks of meat. Not so useless now, right? Recent studies of T-Rex arm bones show they were covered in deep muscle scars, meaning these arms saw serious action. Scientists now think they might have been crucial for something we never considered. Mating. Those powerful arms could have helped T-Rex hold on to their, partner during, we're just going to keep this video family friendly, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about. But if you think the T-Rex arms are misunderstood, wait until you hear about the Stegosaurus's brains, because that whole second brain thing you've probably heard about, the truth is even stranger. For years, scientists thought Stegosaurus had a second brain in its butt. Yes, you heard that right. And while that turned out to be wrong, the real story is even more fascinating, because what they actually found changes everything we know about dinosaur survival. Picture this, you're a paleontologist in the 1800s staring at a Stegosaurus skeleton. You've got this massive animal with a brain the size of a hot dog, but there's this weird cavity near its hips that looks suspiciously like a second brain case. Naturally, you think, aha, two brains, makes sense, right? One brain for the front, one for the butt. Every other animal has that, right? But here's where modern science drops a plot twist. That second brain wasn't a brain at all. It was something called the glycogen body. Modern birds have them too, and they're basically biological battery packs that store energy for when times get tough. That glycogen body might have been what helped Stegosaurus survive in environments where other dinosaurs couldn't. Imagine having a built-in emergency food supply that could keep you going for weeks. It's like carrying around a backup generator in your spine. And the location wasn't random either. Having this energy storage near its hips meant Stegosaurus could power those massive leg muscles and that famous tail weapon, the Thagomizer. Yes, that's its real scientific name, and yes, it was named after a Far Side cartoon. Sometimes science has a sense of humor, even if it's terrifying. But speaking of weapons, let's talk about its defenses, because the plates on the Stegosaurus's back, they weren't just for show. They were high-tech temperature regulators that gave it a serious survival advantage. For years, everyone assumed those massive back plates were shields. I mean, they look like armor, right? But here's the thing, they were too thin and brittle to stop an attack. What they were actually packed with was something much more interesting. Blood vessels, lots of them. We're talking about a network so dense it would make your circulatory system look simple. These plates were basically prehistoric radiators. When Stegosaurus needed to cool down, it could pump blood into these plates, where the large surface area would help release heat. Just like your car's radiator. Need to warm up? Just angle those plates towards the sun like solar panels. It's the same principle that helps elephants use their ears to regulate their temperature. But here's where it gets really clever. The plates weren't just for temperature control. They could also flush with blood to create a dramatic display. Imagine a Stegosaurus turning its plates bright red to intimidate rivals or attract mates. It's like having built-in warning lights and air conditioning. It's basically the earliest version of a Ford F-150, except far more deadly. Scientists confirmed this by looking at the plate's internal structure using CT scans. They found channels that could have only been for blood vessels, and the arrangement was perfect for rapid temperature changes. This wasn't just some passive defense system, it was an active part of Stegosaurus's survival toolkit. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about dinosaur extinction, because everything you've been told about their disappearance being a failure of evolution, yeah, that's completely wrong. And the truth is gonna blow your mind. I am so sick of everyone thinking that dinosaurs were evolutionary failures. They ruled Earth for 165 million years. Humans, we've been around for about 300,000 years. That means dinosaurs dominated the planet 550 times longer than we have. Dinosaurs didn't just survive, they thrived. They evolved into everything from tiny feathered predators to the largest land animals that have ever lived. But here's the real mind bender. Dinosaurs are still here. Every time you see a bird, you're looking at a living dinosaur. That pigeon outside your window, it's got more dinosaur DNA than some dinosaurs had with each other. Birds aren't just the descendants of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, just as much as T-Rex or Velociraptor. Talk about successful. There are about 10,000 species of birds alive today. That's more species than all mammals combined. So not only did dinosaurs survive the asteroid impact, they're currently winning the diversity game. Not bad for a group that's supposedly extinct. The only reason we think of dinosaurs as failures is because we focused on the ones that didn't make it. That's like saying mammals are failures because saber-toothed cats went extinct. The truth is, dinosaurs were so successful, even a giant space rock couldn't completely wipe them out. So next time someone tells you dinosaurs were evolutionary dead ends, remind them that they're probably wrong about that too. Because if there's one thing we've learned from these 15 myths, it's that dinosaurs were way more impressive than we ever imagined. If you enjoy learning about dinosaurs in a fun and casual manner, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. And make sure to drop a comment telling me which dinosaur myths you want me to tackle next. Maybe it's with the Dilophosaurus or whether it was the Velociraptor. I'll do them all. If you want to watch more videos about dinosaurs like this video, click on it now.